彼は親密な時間の後に何を考えているのか？これは多くの女性が抱く問いでありながら、誰もはっきり答えを知らない謎だ。しかしユング心理学は、この瞬間にこそ人間の無意識の声が最も強く現れると教えている。親密な関係の直後、男性は言葉くなくなることがある。多くの女性はこう感じる。もう彼は私に興味を失ったのでは？私は利用されたのでは？だが心理学的に言えば、それは必ずしも冷たさのサインではない。むしろその沈黙は、無意識が統合を試みている瞬間なのだ。ユングは言った。親密さは、心の奥に眠る影を呼び覚ます。つまり彼は、自分の影、恐れ、劣等感、孤独と直面している。そのため、言葉ではなく沈黙や表情にその心が現れる。ある女性は、恋人と親密な時間を過ごした後、彼が急に無口になることに傷ついていた。しかし後に彼が打ち明けたのは意外な言葉だった。あの瞬間、俺は幸せすぎて失うのが怖くなったんだ。彼女は悟った。沈黙は拒絶ではなく、深い感情と影の揺れだったのだ。親密さは単なる肉体の結びつきではない。それは自我と無意識が強烈に触れ合う瞬間。男性はこの時、普段は抑圧している感情、弱さ、依存、恐怖を突きつけられる。だから、行動や表情が彼の本音を語り始める。思考型の男、理屈で整理しようとし、無口になる。感情型の男、急に優しくなったり、不安定になったりする。感覚型の男、身体的な接触を繰り返し求める。直感型の男、未来を語り始めるか、逆に沈黙に沈む。どのタイプも、彼が何を考えているかを言葉でなく態度で示している。禅にはこうある。雨が止んだ後、土の香りがすべてを語る。同じように、親密な後の沈黙や仕草こそが、彼の無意識の真実を語っている。あなたは彼の沈黙を拒絶と誤解していないだろうか？その沈黙の奥に潜む影と愛を見抜こうとしているだろうか？親密な後、男性が沈黙するのは冷めたからではない。それはむしろ愛と影が衝突する深い瞬間。彼の言葉ではなく態度や沈黙を読むことで、あなたは彼の無意識に触れられる。次のブロックでは、なぜ男性は親密さの後に距離を取ろうとするのかをユング心理学の視点から解き明かしていこう。なぜ彼は親密な時間の後、距離を取ろうとするのか？多くの女性が経験するこの瞬間は、冷めたサインのように見えて実は違う。ユング心理学は、その背後に影の恐れと自我の防衛が働いていると説明する。喪失の恐怖。彼が親密さの中で感じた幸福が強ければ強いほど、心の奥では、失ったらどうしようという影の声が大きくなる。この恐怖を抑えるために、無意識に距離を作ろうとする。自我の揺らぎ。親密さは自我の境界を壊す。彼は、一人でいる自分と結びついた自分の間で揺れ、バランスを取り戻そうとして一時的に離れる。劣位機能の露出。普段隠している弱点や不安が浮かび上がり、彼はその不安定さを隠すために沈黙や冷静さを装う。ある女性は、恋人が親密な時間の後にそっけなくなることに傷ついていた。しかし後に彼はこう語った。君を抱きしめている間、俺は幸せすぎて、次の瞬間に失うんじゃないかって怖くなったんだ。彼の距離は拒絶ではなく、影の防衛反応だった。ユングは、影は最も愛する人の前で現れると語った。つまり、彼が距離を取ろうとするのは、愛が深いからこそ影が刺激されている証拠。冷めたのではなく、心の防衛システムが作動しているのだ。 思考型の男、理屈を探すために急に冷静になる。感情型の男、感情が溢れて疲れ、一時的に閉じこもる。感覚型の男、身体的な接触を控え、現実的な作業に逃げる。直感型の男、未来を過剰に考え、急に不安を抱いて沈黙する。どの反応も愛の欠如ではなく、影に触れたサインである。善にはこうある。火に近づけば熱を知り、思わず後ずさる。彼の距離も同じだ。愛が深くなった瞬間、その熱に怯えて一歩引く。だがそれは火を消したいわけではなく、熱の強さを受け止めきれないだけだ。彼が距離を取るとき、あなたは拒絶だと決めつけていないか？その一歩の後ろには、むしろ愛の強さが隠れているのではないか？親密さの後に彼が距離を取るのは冷めたからではない。それは無意識の影が作動し、自我を守ろうとする自然な防衛。つまりその距離はむしろ愛が深まった証でもあるのだ。次のブロックでは、彼が沈黙や距離の中で本当に考えていることを、さらにユング心理学の観点から深く釣りしていこう。彼は沈黙や距離の中で本当は何を考えているのか？その答えはユング心理学が示す投影と無意識の統合プロセスに隠されている。男性が親密さの後に沈黙するのは空っぽだからではない。むしろ逆だ。感情が溢れすぎて言語化できないのだ。自己価値への問い。彼女にふさわしいだろうか？自分は本当に愛されているのだろうか？親密な瞬間は彼の自己価値観を強烈に刺激する。失う恐怖。幸せを感じた後ほど人は喪失を強く恐れる。ユングは影は愛の中で最も激しく目を覚ますと言った。未来への想像。直感型の男性は特に沈黙の中でこの関係は続くだろうかと未来を描いている。ある女性は恋人が沈黙するたびに不安になっていた。しかしある日、彼にこう尋ねた。今、何を考えているの？彼は少し間を置いて答えた。君と一緒にいる時間が幸せすぎて、いつか終わるのが怖いんだ。その沈黙は愛の不在ではなく愛の深さの証だった。沈黙や距離は心が統合を試みる時間。思考型感情を整理している。感情型感情の高ぶりを鎮めている。感覚型現実感を取り戻している。直感型未来のビジョンを構築している。つまり彼は沈黙の中であなたとの関係をどう受け止めるかを必死に考えている。善にはこうある。川は静けさの中で深みを増す。彼の沈黙も同じだ。表面は静かでも、その下で感情は激しく流れている。あなたは彼の沈黙を恐れているか？それとも、その沈黙の中に潜む愛の声を聞こうとしているか？彼が沈黙するのは、愛を失ったからではない。むしろ、愛が深まりすぎて心が追いつけないからだ。その瞬間こそ、彼の無意識は、あなたを失いたくないと叫んでいる。次のブロックでは、親密さの後に彼が見せる具体的な愛のサインを解き明かし、女性が安心して受け止められるようにしていこう。彼は親密さの後、必ず無意識のサインを漏らしている。言葉ではなく、小さな態度や仕草にこそ、彼がどれだけあなたに心を奪われているかが現れる。ユング心理学はそれをリビドーの方向性と呼び、愛のエネルギーがどこに流れているかを示すものだ。視線の残像。彼はあなたから目をそらすように見えて、実際には何度も振り返る。これは、まだつながっていたいという無意識の表れ。身体の余韻。会話をしなくても無意識に手や肩に触れたくなる。触覚は言葉以上に彼のリビドーを語っている。 記憶の強化。親密な後ほど、彼はあなたの細かな言葉や行動を覚えている。心理学的には、感情が強い瞬間に記憶は深く刻まれるからだ。別れのためらい。帰ろうとしながらも、何度も話を引き伸ばそうとする。これは、まだ切り離されたくない、という無意識の叫び。沈黙の保護。親密さの後の沈黙は、拒絶ではなく、その瞬間を壊したくない心理。ユング的に言えば、これは聖なる体験を守る無意識の儀式だ。ある女性は、恋人が親密な後に黙り込むのを冷たさだと思っていた。だがある日、彼がこう語った。言葉を挟むと、あの時間が薄れてしまいそうで、ただ黙っていたかったんだ。彼の沈黙は拒絶ではなく、むしろ愛を守る仕草だった。思考型の男、不器用に質問を投げ、会話を長引かせようとする。感情型の男、小さな優しさ、水を差し出す、毛布をかける、で気持ちを示す。感覚型の男、触覚や匂いに強く反応し、近くにいようとする。直感型の男、未来を語り、またここに戻ってきたい、という。禅にはこうある。花は散っても、香りはしばらく残る。彼のサインも同じだ。親密さが終わった後でも、その余韻の香りが彼の行動に残っている。あなたは彼の小さな仕草を拒絶と誤解していないだろうか？その仕草の奥に隠れた、まだ一緒にいたい、という声を聞いているだろうか？親密さの後、彼は必ずサインを出している。それは冷たさではなく、まだつながっていたいという無意識の愛の証拠。それを見抜けるかどうかが、あなたと彼の絆を深める分岐点になる。次のブロックでは、女性がこの瞬間にどう応答すれば、彼との結びつきをさらに深められるのかを解き明かしていこう。彼の無意識のサインを受け取った後、あなたはどう応答すべきか？この瞬間の態度こそが、一時的な親密さを深い結びつきへ変える鍵である。ユング心理学の視点では、ここで女性が示す姿勢が彼の影を癒すか、逆に不安を強めるかを左右する。沈黙を尊重する。彼が言葉を失っているとき、あなたが焦って問い詰めると、彼はさらに心を閉ざす。沈黙を愛の余韻として共に味わうとき、彼は安心し、心を開いていく。小さな確認を与える。今日は特別な時間だったね。一緒にいて心が落ち着いた。シンプルな言葉で余韻を肯定することで、彼は拒絶されていないと無意識に確信する。境界を優しく示す。愛を深めるためには、常に全てを差し出す必要はない。あなたが自分を大切に扱う姿勢を見せると、彼は逆にあなたを尊重するようになる。ある女性は、恋人が沈黙するたびに、どうしたの？と繰り返し聞き、彼を追い詰めていた。だが彼女が一度、静かに寄り添いながら微笑んだとき、彼は初めて自分の不安を語った。本当は、君を失うのが怖いんだ。その瞬間、二人の関係は表面的なものから深い信頼へと変わった。ユングは影を受け入れられたとき、人は自己を統合すると語った。彼の嫉妬、不安、沈黙はすべて影の一部。あなたがそれを拒絶せず、受容する存在になるとき、彼は無意識に、この人こそ自分の魂を理解すると感じる。思考型の男、感情を一言で言語化して安心させる。感情型の男、沈黙を受け入れ、心を落ち着ける空間を作る。感覚型の男、触れ合いやぬくもりで応答する。直感型の男、未来への希望を共有してあげる。禅にはこうある。器は水を語らない。ただ受け入れる。同じように、彼のサインを解釈しすぎる必要はない。ただ受け入れることが、 最も深い応答となる。あなたは彼の影を責めてはいないだろうか？それとも、その影ごと彼を抱きしめる覚悟があるだろうか？親密さの後の応答が関係の方向性を決める。沈黙を恐れず、影を受け入れる態度こそが、愛を一時的な快楽ではなく、魂の結びつきへと変えていくのだ。次のブロックでは、この結びつきをさらに進化させ、彼の無意識を手放せない愛へと固定する方法を解き明かしていこう。どうすれば彼の心を一瞬の親密さではなく手放せない愛へと固定できるのか？ユング心理学の答えは明確だ。無意識に刻まれる象徴、シンボルを与えることである。繰り返される象徴。彼にとってあなた安心、深さ、唯一無二と感じられる行動や言葉を繰り返す。無意識は繰り返しを真実として認識する。影と結びつける。彼の弱さや不安を優しく受け止めることで、彼女だけが自分を理解する存在だという感覚を強化する。シンクロニシティの演出。偶然を装った共鳴。不思議と同じことを考えていた。同じ夢を見ていたが彼の心に運命の刻印を残す。ある女性は恋人との関係を深めるために彼の好きな香りを日常的に使っていた。数年後、彼はこう言った。あの香りを嗅ぐと君のことを思い出さずにはいられない。彼女は無意識に彼の記憶に象徴を植え付けていたのだ。ユングは象徴は無意識と意識をつなぐ橋だと語った。あなたが象徴を繰り返し与えることで、彼は無意識の中であなたを永遠の存在として固定する。思考型の男、理屈を超えた繰り返しの優しさで刻む。感情型の男、感情を受け止め続けることで深まる。感覚型の男、触覚や匂いなど身体的象徴で記憶に残す。直感型の男、未来を共に描く象徴的な言葉を刻む。禅にはこうある。鐘を打てば、その余韻は長く響く。愛も同じだ。一度の象徴が無意識の中で長く響き、彼をあなたに縛り付ける。あなたは彼の無意識にどんな象徴を残しているだろうか？その象徴は彼を自由にするものか、それとも依存させるものか？親密さを一瞬で終わらせず、手放せない愛へと変えるには、象徴を無意識に刻み込むこと。それが繰り返されるとき、彼はあなたを人生の中心として再構築する。次のブロックでは、象徴を通じて固定された愛が最終的に彼の人生全体をどう変えるのかを解き明かしていこう。無意識に象徴が刻まれた愛は、やがて彼の人生全体を変えていく。それは単なる恋愛の枠を超え、彼の自己像、人生観、そして魂の方向性にまで影響を及ぼす。自己価値の再構築。彼は、あなたに選ばれたという事実を自分の存在価値の証として感じる。これは劣等感や影の痛みを癒し、自己肯定感を高めていく。人生の選択基準の変化。無意識に彼女を守る、彼女と共に進むことが人生の基盤となる。仕事、夢、人間関係さえもその方向性に沿って形を変える。影との対峙の加速。あなたが象徴として存在することで、彼は逃げていた影と向き合わざるを得なくなる。不安、嫉妬、孤独、それらを乗り越えることで、魂の成長が始まる。ある男性は、かつて自己価値が低く、恋愛が続かないことに苦しんでいた。しかし、ある女性と出会い、彼女の存在が象徴となってから人生が変わった。彼は不安に直面しながらも、彼女を失いたくないという思いが原動力となり、仕事に挑戦し、心を鍛えた。彼は言った。彼女のおかげで、 俺は自分を信じられるようになった。ユングはアニマ、男性の無意識の女性性の存在を語った。女性は男性にとって自分の無意識を映し出す魂の象徴となる。だからこそ愛が固定されると彼は無意識の深層から変化を迫られる。あなたは単なる恋人ではなく、彼にとって自己実現の触媒となるのだ。思考型の男、理屈では説明できない愛によって感情を受け入れ始める。感情型の男、自分の感情を整理し、安定した愛を育てる。感覚型の男、日常のすべてをあなたとの体験で彩ろうとする。直感型の男、未来を二人の物語として描き、行動を現実に落とし込む。禅にはこうある。一輪の花が咲くと庭全体が変わる。愛という象徴も同じだ。彼の心に一つ刻まれることで、彼の人生全体が形を変える。あなたは彼の人生を変える象徴として存在しているだろうか？それとも一時的な快楽の影にとどまっているだろうか？象徴を通して固定された愛は彼を変える。それは依存ではなく、成長と統合への原動力となる。あなたの存在は彼の人生を再構築し、魂を目覚めさせる力になるのだ。次のブロックでは、この物語を総括し、親密さの後に彼が本当に求めているものを明らかにし、力強いメッセージで締めくくろう。親密さの後、彼が本当に求めているものは何か？それは肉体的満足でもなく、一時の安心でもない。ユング心理学の視点から言えば、彼が求めているのは、魂のつながりである。安心の確認。彼女はまだここにいるのか？自分は拒絶されていないか？影が叫ぶこの問いに、彼は無意識に答えを探している。意味の付与。親密さがただの行為で終わるのか、それとも根の交流になるのかは、あなたの態度次第。ユングは、意味が付与されない体験は心に残らないと語った。未来の暗示。彼は無意識に、この結びつきは続くのかと予感を探っている。その予感が安心で満たされると、彼はさらに深くあなたを求める。ある男性は、親密な後に彼女が静かにありがとうと囁いた瞬間を忘れられなかった。その言葉が彼にとって行為を感謝と愛の儀式へ変えた。彼は後にこう言った。あの時から俺は彼女を手放せなくなった。ユングは親密さは自己と他者の無意識が交わる場だと語った。つまりその瞬間、彼はあなたの中に自分のアニマを見ている。もしそのアニマが受け入れられたと感じたら、彼は一生あなたを求め続ける。思考型の男、意味を求める。この関係には価値があるのか？感情型の男、安心を求める。自分は愛されているのか？感覚型の男、継続を求める。この体験をまた繰り返せるのか？直感型の男、未来を求める。この結びつきは運命なのか？禅にはこうある。灯火は暗闇を消すのではなく、闇の中で輝きを増す。親密さの後に訪れる不安や沈黙も光がないのではない。むしろその光がより鮮明に求められている証拠なのだ。あなたは親密さを行為で終わらせていないだろうか？その瞬間を魂の物語へと変えているだろうか？親密さの後に彼が求めているのは真の確証と魂の結びつき。それを与えられる存在になったとき、あなたは彼の人生において唯一無二の象徴となる。ここまで聞いて、あなたはどう感じただろうか？沈黙の意味を誤解していた。彼の仕草が実はサインだったと気づいた。そう思ったなら、ぜひコメントに残してほしい。あなたの言葉が 同じ悩みを抱える人の光になる。そして、この旅をさらに続けたいなら高評価とチャンネル登録をお願いします。次回は、なぜ一部の愛だけが魂の結びつきとして残るのか？ユング心理学が語るシンクロニシティの秘密を深く釣りしていこう。あなたは彼の沈黙を恐れるか？それともその奥に潜む魂の愛を受け取るか？
When you are the creator, since you are the creator of your own reality, that means you are emitting a vibration and the law of attraction is responding to it, always perfectly. So what comes back to you always matches what you're putting out. And if you're like most people, you have quite a mixed bag that you're putting out because mostly you are offering your vibration in response to what you're observing. And there's a lot of variety that you're observing and you feel different ways about much of it. And so you're offering a vibration about things you want and you're offering a vibration about things you don't want. And when you shout yes, you are attracting what you're shouting yes to. And when you shout no, you are attracting what you're shouting no to. Because the law of attraction doesn't distinguish the difference in the word yes and no. It only distinguishes attention to it. So it turns out there's no such thing as no. There's just yes to wanted and yes to unwanted. And so when you begin to understand that, if you're like most people, you decide that you're going to be more deliberate about what you give your attention to. But the law of attraction has been responding to so many of your thoughts for so long that you have some patterns going, some momentum going that sometimes are hard to break because the law of attraction, frankly, won't let you let go. When you have been thinking something for a while, maybe even because your mother thought it, or because a lot of people around you are thinking it, even though it isn't something that you want, because you've been thinking it, it's active in your vibration and therefore showing up often in your life experience. And so we come along as teachers to help you to understand these universal laws and to help you get a handle on how to live happily within them. And we say to you, be more deliberate about your thought, but we also must say to you, give yourself a break because you've got some momentum going. A belief is a thought that you continue to think. And the reason you continue to think it is because you've thought it, so law of attraction delivers it up to you more easily. Some thoughts are easier for you to think, and you know what thoughts those are? The most practiced thoughts. The most practiced thoughts are the thoughts that are the easiest for you to think because they're the thoughts that have the most momentum. So you need to give yourself a break when all of a sudden you can't stop hating that person that you've hated for so long. And the reason that hate, that meanness within you feels so bad, maybe familiar but still bad, when you feel it is because the larger part of you never thinks that way about others. And when you do, you cause a separation between you and you. So what we mean by that is you are more than this physical body. In fact, more of you is source energy than is this physical body. And that non-physical part of you, sometimes you call that your soul. We like to call it your inner being. That non-physical part of you who existed before you did in this body still exists in non-physical, still is consciousness, still is aware of you, still is focusing, and still is non-physical. So that non-physical part of you is thinking about the things that you're thinking about, but not necessarily in the same way that you're thinking about them. When you see something as a problem, your inner being sees it as an asking for a solution. When you see something as having gone wrong, your inner being knows that you're collecting data and that you're launching rockets of desire that are defining your preferences. So your inner being never pushes against anything, and your inner being never feels what you would call hate or fear. Your inner being is pure positive energy. Your inner being is the vibrational equivalent of what man wants to call source energy or God. It's pure love. It's non-resistant. And that's who you are. That's who you are. But when you're here in this physical body and you see things that you think are wrong, and you feel that anger rising up within you, that's because you've defined it as wrong and you're pushing against it, while the larger part of you isn't defining it as wrong. Your inner being is acknowledging its existence, but not pushing against it. Not to get too deep into stuff too soon today here, but that's really what compassion is. Source can look at things that upset you and not be upset. And that's what makes Source so powerful and so helpful, because Source stays connected to all of that well-being, so that when you are in trouble, Source doesn't see your trouble, Source sees your solution. When you stood before Jesus dripping your illness, he did not see your illness. He knew instead your wellness. And he knew it so powerfully that while he was with you and you were with him, your illness could not exist in that vibrational frequency because of his pure connection to source energy. One who's connected is more powerful than millions who are not. And so his knowing, his focus dominated that moment in time, and your illness was suspended under those conditions because it was just vibrationally blown out of the water. That's the easiest way to say it. Just could not exist. And then he said, go forth and tell no one, because he knew if you went home and talked about what had happened, they'd talk you right out of it. Because most people think that as things are, that's as they are. And you come to know, and certainly your source knows, that things are always in a state of becoming, and that things are constantly changing. But for most humans, you don't let things change much. Oh, they're changing all the time. Different places, different faces, but they're changing to more of the same because your attitudes often do not change. You see things in a certain way. You believe them in a certain way. You talk to people who believe those same things in a certain way. And you hold yourself in a vibrational pattern that won't let things change for you. Where all along, what you intended and what you are often doing, you came into this physical body knowing that you would be on the leading edge of thought, on the leading edge of creation. And you knew that as you explored the variety, that you would make your personal choices, you would find your personal preferences, and that as you would see what you don't want, you would know what you did want. Even at unconscious levels, you are doing that sifting and sorting. And so when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. That's that step one. That's asking. That's asking. The minute that that preference is defined by you, and it's a very subtle and short amount of time, the source within you follows the rocket of desire that you have launched, holds steady upon it, and actually becomes the vibrational equivalent of it. In other words, you don't know it usually, but because of what you experienced, you just expanded because you ask, and your source, your inner being, became that more prosperous person that you wanted, or that more loving person that you wanted. Whatever it was that you were asking for, vibrationally speaking, you just became it. So step one and step two just happened. You ask, and source holds you right there, vibrationally. Step three is, you got to find some way to feel like that. And it's not easy, because usually the thing that's caused you the problem is what's still active in your vibration. That's what makes you defensive. And that's what makes you feel like you have to justify. Of course I want that because I've got this and I don't like this. And nobody likes this that's got this. And a whole lot of us have this and none of us like this. And so the whole time that you're defending what it is that you want with your awareness of what is, you're holding yourself in separation from what you want, and also from your inner being who's over there with what you want, not just over there with what you want, but having already become what you want. So you feel the split energy when you are justifying or defending. You feel the split energy. That's what negative emotion always is. It's you in not agreement with your inner being. And you know what? Your inner being is always way on your side. Your inner being is always jumping right on who you have become and what you want, and holds steady to it, holds that vibrational frequency so that you can utilize your guidance system and find your way into vibrational compliance or harmony with that desire. And when you do that, that's what we call step three. That's you lining up with who you really are and what you really want. And when you do that, You feel the relief happen because the negative emotion doesn't exist. You feel the relief happen because the resistance is subsiding, at least for now. And when you get really good at that, when you hold yourself there for a while, that's what we call step 4. Step 4, some tease us, step 4 is just being really good at step 3. Step 4 is really the mastery of step 3. That's when your life really becomes fun for you. That's when you know. We're not asking you to only have positive thought. You couldn't do that. We're not asking you to never have a thought about anything you don't want. You couldn't do that. In fact, you shouldn't do that. You came to sift and sort and to analyze and to decide. That's all part of the process of expansion. But you didn't intend to get stuck in the harping on what's wrong. You did not intend to complain about what's wrong. You intended to launch a rocket, and then you intended to get over it. Then you intended to focus upon the solution and begin moving in the direction of what you want with your thoughts. And you know what? That feels so satisfying. Satisfaction is that feeling that you feel when you are moving in the direction of who you really are. And dissatisfaction is what you feel when you're in the moment moving away from who you are and what you want. And so then step 5, maybe our favorite. Step 5 is when you're back in a contrasting moment. Some might want to call that step 1. But the difference is you're exploring the contrast, but you're not beating up on yourself. You're exploring the contrast, but you're not mad at anybody. It's just contrast, like being at a buffet. Don't want that, want that. Don't want that, want that. Don't want that, do want that. You're not saying don't want that because it's evil. You're not insisting that they remove it from the menu. It might get on my plate. So step 5 is expressing your appreciation for the variety that surrounds you while you hold yourself more deliberately in the direction of what you want. You understand that you create your own reality, but we want to help you to find an easy way of being in your now, in your powerful now. An easy way of being in your now and being a vibrational match to who you really are. Because nothing feels better than to be in this physical body and focused in a way that the whole of you is pouring through you. Sometimes we call that alignment. It certainly is. Recently, we've been calling it tuned in, tapped in, turned on. Calling it that for a while. Recently, we've been saying that when you are tuned in to that frequency that is really you, that you are in a state of non-resistant thought. And we want you to taste with us here today, you will, and in the days that follow, the power of non-resistant thought. Here's what we mean by that. This is worth spending a little bit of time on, because once you get this, you've got everything. Oh, never mind. We should do this. We want to do this. So the power of non-resistant thought, here's what it is about. The law of attraction, you have a handle on what that is. So the law of attraction is responding to the vibration that you are offering. But remember, it's not just you offering a vibration. Your inner being is offering a vibration in the same moment about the same subject. So let's say you are wanting more money. And your inner being has already become, vibrationally speaking, that more prosperous entity, that more prosperous being. So your inner being is attracting, with no resistance whatsoever, prosperity to you. And all kinds of cooperative components are coming to that larger part of you. Do you have a picture of that? Oh, that's powerful. But then there's you. We did say it that way, didn't we? But then there's you. Then there's you. Then there's you. Worrying about not having enough money, remembering not having enough money, railing about not having enough money. And so in the midst of that, you are introducing resistance into the equation. And even though more money is coming to you and what we call your vibrational reality, that point of attraction that your inner being is tending, we know we're asking you to accept something that you can't see, but in time you can feel this non-physical energy gathering the cooperative components on your behalf. It's powerful and it's real. And when you are not resisting, then you go from step 1, which is asking, often with resistance, into step 3, which is non-resistant. And that's the power of non-resistant thought. Now, if you could stay there more often and allow more momentum, then more of the things that you want would come into full fruition faster for you. If you can be more in vibrational, consistent realization of what you want, then you would experience what we are calling the power of non-resistant thought. Things lined up for you, truly traffic parts for you. Things happen that feel completely illogical. When the rug man comes to your house, he brings the perfect rug, and it's not one you picked out. He picked it out. He picked it out because your inner being knows what you want. You just didn't see it in his rug store, but he found it. We understand why there is some hesitation sometimes. Because when your desire is new and fresh, it calls you in a different way, doesn't it? But if you've wanted something for a while, and it seems to be slow in coming, we understand why that desire would not feel so good to you. A desire that is believed or expected feels so life-giving, while a desire that feels like it is not coming, or like it has not come, or like maybe it may never come, those desires are not as pleasant. And the trouble with that distinction is that you can't have some desires that are answerable and some that aren't. In other words, you can't say some desires are appropriate and therefore will be granted, and other desires are inappropriate and therefore will not be granted. In other words, you can't have it both ways. When you ask, it is either given or it isn't. When you ask, the answer comes forth or it doesn't. But what we want you to understand is that everything that you ask for is always answered. When you ask, it is always given, every single time, no exceptions. So, if you have desires that feel as if they are unanswered, it is not because they are not being answered. It is because there is something happening in your vibration that isn't letting them in. And that feeling of freshness or exhilaration that is present with some desires, and that feeling of discouragement or disappointment or worry or even fear that is present with other desires, those emotions that you feel are the telling distinction that you want to be focused about. In other words, every desire is answered, but if it feels fresh and exhilarating to you, you're letting it be answered sooner. If it feels like discouragement, or if it feels like fear, or if it feels like frustration even, then there is something going on in your thinking process that is hindering your reception of what you're asking for. We like to help you to feel the power that you hold in the receiving or the not receiving of your own wishes or desires. Sometimes at first, when our physical friends begin to focus upon the idea of creating their own reality, sometimes you balk at the idea, especially at first, because you're not sure that you are worthy of choosing. Sometimes you balk at the idea of being the creator of your own reality because you are not sure that you are wise enough or worthy enough. And we want, as we're moving forward here today, for you to get that one handled in your own vibration. We want you to leave this gathering no longer questioning the appropriateness of you creating your own reality. Instead, we want you to leave here knowing that not only do you create your own reality, or can you create your own reality, but no one else does. Nobody else is choosing for you. You are choosing. We want you to go with the flow. You've heard the expression, go with the flow. And we want you to realize that in the ultimate sense, what going with the flow means is going with the flow of the ideas that this time-space reality has helped to give birth to within you. In other words, if this environment has inspired the idea within you, it is our promise to you that this environment can fulfill that desire completely. You could not want it if you could not have it or be it or do it. it. It's not possible. The idea that you have dreamed it means that it can be yours. In fact, we would like to say to you, it means that it must be yours. But you've got to get in sync with your own desire, which means you got to go with the flow of your desire, not against the flow of your desire. How do you know when you're in the flow of a desire? It feels wonderful. It feels like passion. It feels like enthusiasm. It feels like the next logical step. It feels like well-being. How do you know when you're not going with the flow? It feels like frustration. It feels like irritation. It feels like aggravation. It feels like fear. It feels like anger. It feels like suffocation. In other words, when you're not going with the flow of what? The flow of well-being. How do we know it's the flow of well-being? It's the only flow there is. There is only a stream of well-being. You can let it in or not. If someone presses a pillow to your face and you feel deprived or suffocated from the oxygen, do you say somebody has shut the valve off for the whole world? Do you say something has happened and the air that I breathe has been siphoned from the atmosphere and now we all will be suffocated? Or do you say something is going on with me personally that is keeping me from being in the flow of oxygen? There's no source of sickness. There's no source of poverty. There's no source of bad stuff. There's no source of that sickness or stuff you do not want. But there is you, without meaning to, achieving vibrational alignment with how things are instead of with how things are desired. In other words, if you look into some poverty-ridden region or into some shadow in your body that you call illness or into your checking account that seems to be without funds, and you pronounce, this is my current view of reality, what you're actually saying is, this is, of all the myriad of opportunity to focus that is provided for me here, this is what I'm choosing to give my undivided attention to, and therefore this is what I am choosing as my vibrational basis for now. And you can tell by the way you feel whether this choice is going with the flow of well-being or whether, for now, you've got a pillow over your face. So, we want, in the hours that are before us, to help you to realize that you are the creator of your own experience, which means you are the author of your vibration, which means you can control with much less awareness than you have perhaps formerly thought what your vibrational output is on every subject, which means you can control the manifestational input on every subject. In other words, you can control who you rendezvous with in traffic, who you rendezvous with in restaurants, who you rendezvous with in telephone calls. You can control the functioning of your body, the longevity of your body, the flexibility of your body, the clarity of your body. You can control the financial influx into your experience. You can control the people who will come to assist you. In other words, you, only you, are the creator of your own reality. And so we would like to help you to acknowledge, at least as a first step here today, that you want to be the creator of your own reality. Because until you acknowledge, yes, I want to do it, then everything that we will say here today will be sort of irrelevant to you. If you don't want to be the creator of your own reality, then we can't really help you here, but we encourage you to stay anyway because you are the creator of your own reality. So whether you know it or not, whether you want it to be that way or not, that is the way that it is. And it is ever so helpful to start relaxing and trusting yourself a little more and saying things such as, well, I am the creator of my own reality, and while I'm not very good yet at being the creator of my own reality, I like the idea at least that I'm the creator of my own reality, and I'm going to start paying attention to the way I feel so that I can start being more the deliberate creator of my own reality. We would like you to begin saying, it is important to me to be aware of how I feel because the way I feel is my indicator of what I'm doing vibrationally. Do you understand that? That your vibration is indicated to you through emotion. Everything around all of us, whether you are physically focused as you are or whether you are non-physically focused as we are, and really there's very little difference between the two, you are full of those like us. In other words, you cannot separate yourself from the non-physical energy and consciousness and awareness and joyousness and intelligence and willingness and helpfulness. That is us. In other words, you can't get rid of us. You can't shake us off. You can't feel bad enough that we ever go away. You can feel bad enough that you don't acknowledge that we're there. You can feel bad enough that you don't hear what we have to say. You can feel bad enough that you don't have the benefit of our presence, but you can never shake loose of your connection to source energy. It can't be done. You are flesh, blood, and bone beings, but you are more vibration than anything else. And the vibration of your being is your point of attraction. It is the signal that is always being answered. So as you make a statement and really mean it, I'm going to do my best to feel as good as I can from where I am right now. That statement is fabulous. That statement is good enough, because what you're saying is, I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought I can find. And if you reach from depression and you find a thought of anger, have you ever done that? Have you ever been so depressed or in such despair that anger actually felt like a relief to you? It always would, because the vibrational properties of anger are much more allowing of connection than the vibrational properties of despair. You know why that is? Because all of these emotions, no matter what you call them, all the way from despair to passion or joy, they are all about your sense of freedom and well-being. In other words, up here in the joy range, you feel self-empowered. There is empowerment there. Down there in the despair range, you feel powerless. Don't you find that interesting, that your emotional guidance system is based upon who you really are? That you are these powerful, clear-minded, free beings. You are so free that you can choose bondage. You are free to choose, free to focus, free to offer vibrations, free to attract. Sometimes people will see you as you've moved naturally into anger, and they will say to you, your anger is inappropriate. And we would like you to say to them, maybe so, but I'm happy here. This is my happy zone. I cannot reach the bliss that you have reached right now. This is as good as it gets for me, and it feels so much better than where I've been that I'm going to stay here for a while. So if it's unpleasant to you, I suggest you stay clear of me for a while. Do not worry, say to them, I don't plan on staying here very long, because I have this new mantra that says I'm going to continue to reach for the best feeling thought I can find, the best feeling thought I can find, the best feeling thought I can find. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to stay here forever, but for now this is the best feeling thought I can find. I'm working on something in the area of frustration and overwhelmment, but right now this is the best feeling thought I can find. And here is the important thing about this. If you have reached for the angry thought deliberately and have found it, and you can consciously acknowledge that it feels better than where you have been, now you have regained your power, which was what the whole negative emotion thing was about to begin with. That's why once you make that first step into something where you have consciously acknowledged that you're back in control, you can move quickly up the emotional scale. But until you acknowledge that you've done it on purpose and that you have affected the change, then you feel powerless. Then it feels like karma did it to you. Then it feels like your powerful mother did it to you. Then it feels like the government did it to you, or the economy did it to you, or a past life did it to you. You are very creative in all of the ways you explain why things aren't going better. But you never feel good until you acknowledge that you have creative control. The key to this moving up the emotional scale, in fact, it's such a wonderful exercise that we call it moving up the emotional scale. The key to it is reaching for the feeling of relief. There is allowing and there is resisting. And in leaving resistance behind, you find allowing. But the physical, visceral sensation of leaving resistance behind is a feeling of relief. So every time you feel just a little bit better, you have left behind a little bit of resistance. And every time you leave just a little bit of resistance behind, you are allowing more of the things that you've been asking for. So all of those things that have been held in vibrational escrow for you, We're not kidding you. Every time you've been in a situation where contrast has caused you to offer a preference, even if you didn't know you were offering the preference, you didn't speak about it or you didn't write it down, you didn't say, I have a goal. Every time contrast produced preference within you, it preceded you vibrationally. And non-physical energy, non-physical beings like Abraham, like your inner beings, non-physical beings focused upon the rocket that you launched and are imagining it coming to fruition for you. So there is a pre-paving energy vortex that extends out before you, and it is full of all of the things that you want.